Hi, welcome to my channel, Retirement After a Heart Transplant. If this is your first time here, my name is Alan. My episode today I'm titling Surprises After a Heart Transplant. To qualify that, I got to say that there weren't really actual surprises after having a heart transplant because prior to, your transplant team is going to discuss with you quite a number of things that you can expect after transplant. They're going to tell you a lot, provide a lot of information. But like so many things in life, unless you have experienced it, you don't really know what it's like. Going down a roller coaster running 90 miles an hour, somebody can tell you about it all day long, but you really don't know what that's like until you've experienced it. By the way, I quit riding roller coasters years ago. Just don't care for it anymore. Nothing to do with my heart transplant. Just don't do it. Uh, Many of the things I'm going to talk about today, particularly early on in this video, I obtained from a chart that I found that was published by a group called Legacy of Life. It's an organ donation advocacy group. I thought about embedding it in the video, but instead I think I'll just show you the chart just to give credit to them. It's a really nice chart. And I'm taking some bullet points away from this to talk about what I've experienced. Uh, what this chart deals with, and the primary thing that I have experienced that was a surprise or that made a big change in my life was all the things that happen after heart transplant because of the fact that your vagus nerve is severed during heart transplant. Your vagus nerve is a big part of your central nervous system that controls a lot of things in your body and in your brain. I'm going to be focusing, of course, on heart and circulatory stuff. So essentially, what gets lost when that vagus nerve is severed is that all of the autonomic nerve impulses go away. And I'm going to talk about what some of those are as we go through. They go away because the vagus nerve has been severed. The heart's no longer connected to that. And to start talking about that, I'll kind of use a car analogy. And yeah, I got this from the chart, but I liked it. The parasympathetic nervous system, which is part of your nervous system, think of that as the brakes. So when your body is, or your heart, whatever, when you're stimulated for whatever purpose, whatever reason that happened, once that time is over, the parasympathetic nervous system is going to help you relax and slow down. Also, has a lot to do with digestion, by the way. Parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system, you could think of as the accelerator, the gas pedal. I like to use something that I think most people are familiar with, the idea of the fight or flight impulse that people are born with normally. And that is simply, when something happens and, you sense something going on, it might be fear, it might just be being startled. There are a lot of reasons for it, but this fight or flight thing kicks in. It's going to make you instantly respond, instantly react. Well, that is a result directly of, your body's communication with your brain through the vagus nerve. And again, part of the sympathetic nervous system. So bottom line, your heart is no longer controlled by your nervous system after heart transplant because of the vagus nerve being disconnected. A couple of things that happen, a couple of specific things that happen, other than what we just talked about. Your resting heart rate is going to be higher. It's going to be typically between 90 to 100 beats per minute. And mine generally is somewhere in that neighborhood. It might be, even a little higher at times. That's my normal resting heartbeat. We already talked about the fight or flight, the response to stress or movement. Another thing that happens, you have a slower heart rate increase during exercise and slower heart rate decrease after exercise. So if you're running, if you're doing anything that is a cardiac or a cardio workout, causes your heartbeat to go faster, it's not going to happen as instantaneously for the heart transplant because of the vagus nerve being disconnected. It's going to happen. It's just going to be slower. My heartbeat will increase as I exercise, but it's noticeably slower. And after exercise, it's noticeably slower, returning to normal. The other thing that happens is you have blunted blood pressure reflexes. Uh, your blood pressure will change, based upon what's going on with you, physically and or mentally. Some of you may have heard of this thing called white coat blood pressure. Uh, it's when people go to a doctor's office, a dentist's office, and their blood pressure goes up. It's because they're nervous. That's all it is. They're just nervous. Sometimes it's called white coat blood pressure. And typically, most doctors or wherever you're going and you're having your blood pressure check, if it seems to be a little high, first thing they're going to do is have you sit down for 2 or 3 minutes, and they're going to check it again. If it's just white coat blood pressure you've got, that nervousness, hopefully it'll be going down as you sit and relax. So that happens. To summarize, the control of your heart and blood pressure and other things shifts from instant signals that come from the vagus nerve to adrenaline responses. So adrenaline is flowing through your bloodstream, and that's what's controlling your heart and other things instead of the vagus nerve. That kind of sums it up. Before transplant, you could think of it this way. You've got the brakes, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. You've got the gasoline, the accelerator, if you will, the sympathetic nervous system, and all that equals instant control. Sticking with the car analogy, after transplant, there are no pedals. It's like getting in the car and you're looking down. Where are the pedals? Well, there are none. Instead, your cruise control, if you will, is in your bloodstream. It's adrenaline that's flowing through your body and your bloodstream, and that's just how it works. Another important thing that happens after the vagus nerve is severed is you have no ability to sense chest pain. Now that's important for everyone. Your body is built, as I'm sure you know, to send pain signals for anything that is happening to your body, to bring attention to the fact that something's happening to your body. Whether you're cut, you fall down, for any reason at all, you're going to get those those things. And chest pain is one of them. If you have if you have blockages in coronary arteries that feed your heart muscle is going to be starved for blood. It's going to respond by sending pain signals through the vagus nerve to your brain. That's pretty important for everybody. It's even more important for a heart transplant, especially in the early days after transplant. One of the things that transplant teams will focus on after a heart transplant is rejection. Your body rejecting your heart. It's kind of like, a splinter. If you stick a splinter in your finger and you don't take it out over time, it's going to start to swell up, get infected. And that's your body just rejecting the splinter, pushing it out. It's going to do the same thing to the heart because it just doesn't recognize it. It sees it as sort of a foreign object. Thus, the reason for the immunosuppressants to keep it from doing that. But again, if heart rejection is happening in a normal situation, you'd feel chest pain, but you will not feel chest pain as a heart transplant. So that's kind of a big deal. Another thing about the vagus nerve is it may regrow over time. I don't have a lot of detail on this, and I was never given any detail about that. I don't know if there's a test for that. There may be. I've never checked into it, but it may regrow. Factors for that would include just the donor and the recipient age at time of transplant. The younger they were, the higher likelihood that the vagus nerve may reconnect in part or in full. The older you are, I guess, the less likelihood, statistically speaking. The length of the surgery might have something to do with it as well. And then the time post-transplant. In other words, just time passes and perhaps it will regrow. My wife and I have always joked around about the fight or flight thing. Really from day one when I got home from the hospital, my wife would just come up, and because we knew this was going to happen, she would come up and try to startle me, just to see what my response time was. And I have to tell you, you notice it immediately. It's like no matter what happens, a bomb could go off in the next room. You're just kind of going to go, gee, what was that? Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's illustrates what happens. And even to this day, my wife still does that. I have to say, I believe that over time, I do have a little bit more of that fight or flight reflex. I'm not sure if it's really that or if I've just grown accustomed to it with the adrenaline driving everything. And, maybe I just respond faster. Now, I really don't know. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. At any rate, that's, again, one of the biggest things that happens to a heart transplant, and one of the things that resulted in the most surprises, if you will, just the intensity of those effects for me. So I wanted to talk about that. There are a couple of other things that I'll talk about that change after heart transplant. Obviously, you go through recovery, which the initial recovery time before you're sent home from the hospital would vary depending on how well the surgery went, how healthy you are, how many other underlying health problems you might have. In my case, I went home after, I think it was 8 days, which was fairly typical if things go well, and they went well for me, fortunately. This is a little bit controversial, but personality changes in tastes. I mean, literally, like food that you like, things like that, may change after a heart transplant. It's well documented, and there's discussion about does this have anything to do with some cellular memory from your donor's heart? I don't know. I've read a lot about it. I haven't read anything lately, but in early years I read a lot about it. There's no scientific proof of it, but there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that some of that does happen. Obviously, after you have a transplant, you're going to be put on a strict medication regime. You've got to take your immunosuppressants in particular if you want to live. So you've got to stay with that. Take the meds on time, all the time. That might change over time. It's something that researchers are working on. Looking at ways to cause your body not to reject the heart without having to go to this extent of sort of hammering down your immune system, which obviously has other effects. It can cause you to have other problems in your life. Certain activities you might avoid after heart transplant, super risky sports, for example. My transplant team never said a lot about that. I've read where other transplant teams do say a lot about it. And people as individuals approach that differently. I think there's a lot of personal choice involved with that. The only clear example I can give you for me is that I made a decision not to buy another motorcycle. I've not been a lifelong motorcyclist, but I've had motorcycles at times in my life, including right when I went on the waiting list. And, my wife and I talked about it and just decided, we've had enough of that. So let's just take that one risk factor off the table. We won't mess around with that anymore. It's different for everybody. That kind of thing is different for everybody. So, at any rate, these are a few things that happen to transplants, that happened to me, and some of which were surprising. Therefore, that's the reason for the title. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say about it today. I'm trying to keep these videos short, as I always say, or as I often say. If you found anything interesting or enjoyable, if you have any comments, I'd appreciate you leaving comments in the comments below. I'd appreciate also if you would like this video and if you would subscribe to my channel. Beyond that, I thank you for stopping by today, and until next time, bye-bye.